Princess Kate narrowly escapes a horse carriage mishap. Guard reacts instantly. Princess Kate began her morning with a calm sense of purpose, the kind she often carried into her public events. The day's schedule included a ceremonial charity procession inside the palace grounds, something she had done many times before, yet each occasion held a special meaning for her. The event supported a children's wellness foundation she deeply cared about, and she wanted the crowd to feel her sincerity the moment she appeared. As the sun rose higher, the palace lawns sparkled with soft golden light, giving the entire place a warm and festive feeling. The palace courtyard buzzed gently as staff members moved about, checking last-minute details. Even though everything looked polished and ready, each person still gave their task one extra glance, wanting the event to be perfect. Floral arrangements lined the path the carriage would follow, filling the air with the scent of lilies and roses. Banners in soft pastel colors fluttered lightly in the breeze, each one carrying messages of hope, kindness, and community, the themes Princess Kate loved to highlight. Musicians tuned their instruments near the entrance, practicing cheerful notes that drifted across the courtyard like little hints of joy. Inside the palace, Kate stood near a tall mirror, adjusting the simple but elegant outfit she had chosen for the day. She preferred styles that made her look approachable rather than distant, and today was no different. She smoothed the fabric around her shoulders and smiled faintly at her reflection. To her, the event was not just another appearance. It was a chance to meet real people, hear their real stories, and create moments of connection that mattered beyond the cameras. Her personal assistant stepped into the room quietly and informed her that the carriage was ready. Kate nodded with a soft, appreciative smile. She took a slow breath, grounding herself before stepping out. The palace hallway echoed gently with each step she took, the sound familiar and steady, almost comforting. When she reached the grand doors leading outside, 2 footmen opened them for her, revealing the bright scene waiting beyond. The horse-drawn carriage stood beautifully prepared in the courtyard. The polished wood gleamed, and the gold detailing reflected the morning light. The horses, a pair of tall, well-trained bays, held themselves proudly but calmly, as if they knew their role was important. Their caretakers had brushed their coats until they shone, and decorative ribbons matched the colors of the day's charity theme. The horses were gentle creatures, and Kate had always admired the patience and grace they carried in public events. As Princess Kate approached, the crowd behind the barriers reacted with warm applause. Some waved small flags, others held handmade signs thanking her for her work with families and children. Kate lifted her hand in a graceful wave, her smile genuine and welcoming. She made eye contact with children in the front row, nodding encouragingly as they beamed at her. Even though she had attended countless events over the years, she never allowed herself to become distant from moments like this. To her, each audience member deserved her attention. 2 guards stood near the carriage steps, ready to assist her. These guards were part of a highly trained unit responsible for ensuring her safety, yet to Kate, they were more than just security. They were dedicated, disciplined individuals who had served the royal family for years, and she trusted them deeply. One guard offered his hand politely as she stepped into the carriage. Kate thanked him with a quiet word, settling herself onto the cushioned seat. The carriage interior felt soft and familiar, with polished brass fixtures and beautifully stitched fabric. Before the procession began, the guard who would be walking closest to the horses, a man known for his attentive nature, performed a final check. He inspected the harnesses, looked at the horse's posture, and nodded when everything appeared perfectly in place. His job required keen awareness, and he excelled at reading small details, the flick of a horse's ear, the tiny shift in their weight, or a change in their breathing. Kate often admired how dedicated the guards were, taking responsibilities that many never noticed. Trumpets sounded gently, signaling the start of the event. The musician's melody flowed across the courtyard, giving the procession a graceful beginning. The horses lifted their heads slightly, responding to the familiar sound, and the carriage began to move forward slowly, guided by the steady rhythm of their steps. The wheels rolled smoothly over the stone pathway, creating a soft, continuous murmur beneath the cheerful music. As the carriage moved through the gates, the crowd grew thicker. Families, tourists, and longtime supporters of the charity lined the route. Parents lifted their children so they could see better, while others held up their phones to capture the moment. Princess Kate waved warmly, her movements natural and unforced. She wanted everyone to feel included, not just the ones closest to the front. Some children handed small bouquets of flowers to event volunteers, who passed them to the carriage as Kate leaned forward gratefully. She always found children's gestures especially touching, simple, sincere, and filled with excitement. She thanked each child with a soft smile, appreciating the purity of their goodwill. The horses kept a calm pace, their hooves creating a steady rhythm on the ground. The guard walking nearest the lead horse maintained his usual position, attentive but unobtrusive. He kept one hand near the reins, edge, not touching them but close enough to intervene if needed. He scanned the path ahead, taking note of everything: the crowd's movement, the flags waving in the air, the sounds from the musicians. It was his job to anticipate, not react, and he was proud of that responsibility. The weather could not have been better. A light breeze brushed across the open courtyard, soft enough to be refreshing but not strong enough to disturb the horses. The sky was clear with just a few fluffy clouds, and the sunlight created gentle shadows on the ground. The atmosphere felt peaceful, almost idyllic, which added to the charm of the event. Kate breathed in deeply, appreciating how the day seemed to shine with harmony. Photographers stood behind designated lines, clicking their cameras in a steady pattern. Kate had learned long ago to move naturally despite the flashing lenses. She did not pose. She simply behaved like herself, allowing authenticity to shine through. This approach made her popular among the people and respected by those who worked with her. Throughout the event, small interactions kept everything lively. A little girl in a pink dress called out Kate's name, and Kate responded with a warm wave that made the girl blush with excitement. A group of volunteers held up a banner thanking the princess for supporting their cause, and Kate nodded appreciatively. The musicians played cheerful pieces that added a festive rhythm to the moving carriage. As the procession continued, Kate noticed a familiar school group waving enthusiastically from one corner. She had visited their school months earlier for a community wellness project, and seeing their excited faces made the moment even brighter. She leaned slightly forward in the carriage, raising her hand higher so the children would know she recognized them. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the event staff communicated through discreet signals to ensure the route was clear. Even though everything appeared smooth, coordination was key. The carriage moved gently through turns, each motion predictable and controlled. The horses seemed especially calm that morning, responding to every guiding touch with grace. Princess Kate took a moment to appreciate the teamwork involved in events like this. The guards, the staff, the volunteers, the musicians, every person contributed something important. She often felt that the true beauty of such occasions came not from her presence, but from the shared effort of everyone involved. It was this sense of unity that made her role meaningful. As the carriage approached a wider section of the pathway, the crowd thickened again. People leaned gently forward, excited to capture a closer look. Kate could hear snippets of cheerful chatter: children discussing the horses, adults admiring the decorations, tourists expressing disbelief at being so close to a royal event. She found these whispered conversations charming. They reminded her why public appearances mattered. They brought a sense of togetherness, even between strangers from different places. The horses moved with steady confidence, maintaining their orderly pace. Their ears flicked occasionally, responding to small sounds around them, but they remained composed. The guard near them stayed sharply attentive, his focus unwavering. Even though the event felt peaceful, he understood that crowded environments required mindfulness. His posture remained ready but not tense, a sign of experience and calm training. Kate lifted her gaze toward the open palace gardens ahead, which marked the midway point of the procession. The greenery spread out beautifully, with trimmed hedges, gentle fountains, and blooming spring flowers adding color to the scene. It created a picture-perfect setting, enhancing the charm of the entire day. She felt grateful to be part of something that celebrated community and generosity in such a warm, inviting atmosphere. The gentle motion of the carriage lulled her into a reflective state. She thought about the families who would benefit from the charity, the children who would receive support, and the volunteers who dedicated countless hours to their work. She believed deeply in the cause, and knowing that her presence could bring attention to it made her role feel worthwhile. Moments like these reminded her why she embraced public service wholeheartedly. The procession continued with smooth elegance, each part unfolding with seamless grace. Everything, from the shining carriage to the smiling faces, felt connected by an invisible thread of goodwill. Kate glanced once more at the crowd, feeling a genuine sense of joy at the unity the event created. Unbeknownst to her, the peaceful harmony of the moment was about to shift. Nothing alarming, nothing dangerous, just a subtle, unexpected change in the rhythm of the day. But for now, as the carriage rolled gently along the path, Princess Kate felt fully present in the beauty of the moment, unaware that the next part of her day would hold a surprising twist. The procession continued smoothly as Princess Kate's carriage moved deeper along the garden path. The warm sunlight shimmered across the polished wooden frame of the carriage, creating small golden reflections that danced each time the wheels rolled forward. Everything seemed calm and steady, and Kate felt a quiet sense of joy as she watched families waving with bright enthusiasm. The event carried such a peaceful atmosphere that no one would have expected even the smallest interruption. Yet small details in the environment began to shift, the sort of changes only someone paying very close attention might notice. The horses still walked gracefully, their steps even and controlled. They were well-trained, familiar with crowds, familiar with noise, and familiar with ceremonial duties. But horses, like all living creatures, had moments when their sensitivity sharpened. As the carriage approached an area near the garden's edge, a cluster of tall oak trees cast gentle shadows across the path. Thin patches of shade and sunlight created a visual pattern on the ground, something horses often noticed even when humans paid it no mind. The lead horse flicked its ear, responding to a distant sound. It was nothing alarming, just a faint metallic noise from a maintenance area near the far side of the garden. The sound wasn't loud, nor was it sudden, but it was slightly unusual compared to the cheerful music and soft chatter around the procession. Only the nearest guard, the one responsible for monitoring the horses, noticed the small change in the animal's focus. He watched the slight shift in the horse's posture, the way its head lifted a bit higher, the brief pause in its breathing. These were tiny signs, almost invisible to others, but to someone trained like him, they mattered. Princess Kate, still waving gently to the crowd, did not notice anything unusual yet. Her attention remained on the people, especially the children, whose faces lit up whenever she looked their way. She felt grateful for these moments, simple human connections that brought warmth to the day. But the guard's eyes stayed fixed on the lead horse, observing the tension that had not been there before. He kept his expression neutral so the crowd would not sense anything out of place, while quietly adjusting his position to be closer if needed. The crowd continued cheering politely, unaware that the horse had changed its rhythm slightly. A soft buzz of voices floated through the air as families spoke excitedly, pointing at the decorations or whispering about how beautiful the carriage looked. Tourists from various countries captured pictures, trying to freeze the moment into something they could take home. Everything appeared perfectly normal from their perspective. A gentle breeze drifted through the trees, carrying with it the faint rustle of leaves. It was a peaceful sound, but to the already alert horse, every new sound added one more layer to its awareness. Another quiet metallic clink echoed from the distance. Again, not loud, not sharp, just unexpected enough to draw the horse's attention. The horse's head moved slightly to the side, and its body tightened in a subtle way that seasoned caretakers would recognize. The guard stepped half a pace closer. His hand did not touch the reins, but hovered near them with calm readiness. He did not want to signal worry, but he also knew that staying prepared was part of his duty. He glanced briefly at the surrounding area, noting the source of the sound. A pair of maintenance workers were adjusting tools along a far fence, far enough away not to interfere with the event, but close enough for an animal to pick up the unfamiliar noises. Princess Kate noticed the sound too, but she simply attributed it to normal work being done on the grounds. She didn't know the horses had sharper senses, or that the guard was already thinking several steps ahead. Kate waved to a group of older visitors sitting in chairs arranged neatly along the path. Their delighted smiles warmed her, and she leaned slightly forward to show her appreciation. The horses continued walking, though the lead one occasionally shifted its head. Kate noticed this small movement and glanced down at the guard walking beside them. He lifted his eyes briefly, giving her a reassuring look. There was no need for words. His expression communicated what Kate already trusted. The team was attentive. Still, the environment kept giving the horse tiny reasons to stay alert. Flags fluttered more noticeably as the breeze picked up. The shade patterns on the ground moved slightly as branches swayed overhead. These weren't problems, but horses often reacted to changes in familiar environments. The lead horse let out a soft exhale, not a distress sound, but more of a sign of uncertainty. The guard noticed this too. With smooth, practiced movements, he spoke in a calm tone meant only for the horse's ears. Gentle words, steady rhythm. His voice offered reassurance without drawing attention. The horse's ears rotated backward slightly, acknowledging his presence. It helped, but the animal's alertness did not fully disappear. The musicians at the far end played a cheerful tune, the notes rising and falling pleasantly in the air. Though the music was beautiful, the change in tempo from one song to the next created a brief shift in volume. That shift, combined with the continuing metallic echoes from afar, gave the horse more sensory information than usual. Kate continued to greet the crowd, unaware that the guard was now watching the horse's movements more closely than ever. His eyes scanned every detail. The tightening of the muscles near the horse's shoulders, the slight upward flick of its head, the pause in its stride before continuing. None of these signs were dramatic, but together they created a picture only an expert would understand. People leaned forward to take closer photos as the carriage passed near a particularly enthusiastic group of young visitors. Their excitement created a gentle burst of joyful noise. Laughter, cheers, and the sound of clapping hands surrounded the area. For humans, it was a heartwarming display. For a sensitive horse, it was one more element to interpret. The lead horse pressed its hoof a bit harder into the ground, almost as if grounding itself. The guard recognized it instantly. He moved even closer, staying aligned with the horse's body so he could react quickly without startling the animal. The breeze carried another soft, metallic sound, longer this time. The horse lifted its neck slightly, its nostrils widening just a bit. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It was simply a moment of heightened attention, like when a person thinks they've heard something unusual and pauses to confirm. Princess Kate, noticing the horse's head raise again, shifted her gaze from the crowd to the guard. Her eyes asked a silent question, "Is everything all right?" The guard gave another subtle nod. It wasn't a promise that nothing would happen, but rather reassurance that he was aware, prepared, and calmly in control of his role. The carriage wheels continued to turn, their steady rhythm keeping the overall atmosphere peaceful. The crowd remained cheerful, waving flags decorated with pastel colors. Mothers lifted children onto their shoulders, fathers held cameras high, grandparents smiled warmly from folding chairs. The scene was vibrant and full of life, yet beneath that gentle surface, the guard's awareness sharpened. He noticed that the horse's ears kept tilting in different directions, listening carefully to the environment. A horse that felt completely at ease usually kept its ears in a relaxed, forward position. But this one continued shifting them, responding to sounds that humans barely registered. A child along the pathway let go of a balloon, which floated upward slowly. The bright pink balloon drifted across the path above the carriage. It wasn't close enough to cause any trouble, but the horse lifted its eyes briefly to track the movement. The guard noticed that too. To Kate, it was only a cute moment, a balloon drifting into the sky. To the guard, it was one more detail added to the horse's growing list of sensory stimuli. Still, the horse remained under control. It did not pull, did not rear, did not behave unpredictably. It simply gathered information in its own instinctive way. Kate relaxed again when she saw the horse return its focus to the path. But then the metallic sound came again, this time slightly louder, perhaps because the workers had moved a tool. The horse paused mid-step, barely noticeable unless someone watched closely. The guard saw it. He took half a step nearer. His hand hovered near the reins, but he still didn't touch them. Touching before necessary could startle a sensitive animal just as easily as ignoring a sign could create risk. Kate sensed the shift this time. She had attended enough events with horses to understand when something was different, even if she didn't know what. She kept her expression calm and pleasant for the crowd, but inside she felt a slight question forming. She trusted the team completely, and she knew the guard would act if needed. The carriage continued forward, but a new tension, soft and quiet, filled the air, something most people would never feel. It wasn't danger. It wasn't fear. It was simply the awareness of a moment that could turn in any direction, depending on how the next few seconds unfolded. A wave of applause rose from the left side of the path as the procession reached a group of schoolchildren. Their enthusiasm caused a lively burst of cheerful noise. The sudden rise in sound made the horse lift its head once more. The guard immediately responded, stepping closer in a comforting manner, positioning himself where the horse could sense his steady presence. The crowd, of course, noticed none of this. They continued celebrating the moment. Cameras flashed, people smiled, children laughed. The procession looked perfect from the outside. But beneath that perfect image, small signs quietly gathered, signs only the guard fully understood. The horse was not distressed, but it was more alert than usual. A horse does not need fear to react. Sometimes simple stimulation can create a moment of imbalance. Princess Kate's gentle smile remained steady, but she began to sense the atmosphere changing. Not the crowd, not the music, but something about the rhythm of the horses. She could tell that the smooth confidence she felt earlier had shifted into something less predictable. And without anyone fully realizing it yet, these subtle signs marked the beginning of a moment that would soon require quick thinking, calm hands, and a steady heart. The moment that followed began so quietly that most people would never have realized anything unusual was taking place. The peaceful rhythm of the procession continued, the cheerful music played softly in the distance, and Princess Kate's carriage rolled gently along the smooth garden path. From the outside, everything still looked calm and beautiful. But inside the small space of air between the horses, the guard, and the carriage, a subtle shift had begun, something so delicate that it was almost like watching a ripple appear on still water. The lead horse, already slightly alert from the sounds it had heard earlier, lifted its head once more. Its ears twitched, its breathing changed just a little, and a tiny pause appeared in the smooth pattern of its steps. It wasn't a sudden movement, not a dramatic one, just a small interruption that only the guard walking beside it fully noticed. He slowed his pace by half a step, matching the horse without pulling attention from the crowd. Princess Kate noticed the pause, too. She had been greeting the people around her when she felt the carriage shift in the slightest way, barely more than a whisper of movement. She looked down toward the horses, her expression remaining calm so the audience wouldn't feel concerned. The guard raised his eyes briefly, meeting her gaze with a reassuring look, but even in that quick glance, she sensed that he was more focused now than before. The horse placed its next step a little less confidently, as though it wasn't entirely sure about the ground beneath it. The path was perfectly smooth, so there was no real obstacle. It was simply the way the horse responded to its surroundings, shadows shifting, sounds echoing, people moving, balloons floating. Horses were sensitive creatures, and sometimes small things made their minds work faster than their legs. The crowd remained cheerful and unaware. Children waved with both hands, trying to be noticed. Groups of tourists clapped rhythmically, their voices echoing softly through the garden. The musicians continued playing an uplifting tune, their instruments bright and lively. From a distance, the scene looked like a painting full of warmth and celebration. The guard, however, was following the horse's every movement. He could feel the invisible change in the atmosphere. Not a danger, not a threat, simply a moment where something unexpected could happen if not guided carefully. His job required staying calm, staying focused, and staying prepared to assist gently. He moved a little closer to the horse's side, keeping his hand ready without touching the reins unless absolutely necessary. Another soft sound drifted across the garden, a distant metallic clink. It wasn't loud at all, but this time the horse reacted slightly faster than before. It raised its neck, its head tilting at an angle that showed curiosity mixed with uncertainty. The carriage shifted just a little as the horse adjusted its stance. Princess Kate steadied herself naturally, maintaining her warm expression for the crowd. Her years of public service had taught her to remain composed even during unexpected moments. The guard spoke softly to the horse, his voice low and soothing. It wasn't a command, just reassurance, the kind of gentle tone that animals respond to instinctively. The horse flicked an ear in his direction, acknowledging his presence, but its attention still wandered back to the unfamiliar sound. The carriage continued moving, but the rhythm felt different now. Kate could feel it, the guard could feel it, and the horse responded to it with every breath. Still, nothing looked alarming to the people watching. Families cheered, waving flags with bright designs. Volunteers smiled proudly as the carriage passed by. A group of children held up a large handmade banner decorated with hearts and stars, hoping Kate would look at them. Kate did look, smiling brightly and waving to them with her usual graceful charm. But the movement of the horse beneath her shifted again, gently enough for her to keep smiling, yet noticeable enough for her to grow quietly aware. She trusted the guard completely, and even in moments of uncertainty, she believed in the training and skill of the team around her. The lead horse now took a slightly larger step, a movement that created a gentle sway in the carriage. It wasn't unsteady, just unusual. The guard noticed the muscles along the horse's neck stiffen for a moment, and he walked closer in response. His hand hovered just a little nearer to the reins, not touching but ready to guide with care if needed. The horse inhaled sharply, not a distressed breath but a heightened one. It lifted one front leg, paused mid-step, and placed it down a bit more quickly than before. That small motion caused the carriage to tilt ever so slightly. Not enough to concern the crowd, but enough for Princess Kate to adjust her posture. The guard sensed it immediately. He stepped forward and stabilized the horse's movement with his presence alone. His calmness acted like a quiet anchor, reminding the animal that it wasn't alone. He had handled horses for many years, and he understood that their confidence often grew when they felt someone steady near them. But then came the moment that marked the beginning of the near mishap, the moment where things shifted just enough to create a chain of reactions. A new sound appeared from across the garden, soft but quick. It was the sound of a tool being set down on a metal surface. A small noise, nothing harmful, not even close to startling most people. Yet for the horse, already in a state of alertness, this sound blended with all the earlier ones and created a moment of confusion. The horse lifted its head sharply, and its body leaned slightly backward before moving forward again. The movement was quick and unexpected. Princess Kate grabbed the side of the carriage gently to steady herself. She had excellent balance, but even she felt the unexpected shift. Her expression remained warm for the crowd, though her eyes flickered with a subtle understanding that something had changed. The guard reacted instantly, not out of fear, but out of instinct and training. He placed his hand firmly but gently on the rein near the horse's bridle, guiding the animal's head back into its normal position. His voice remained steady, repeating a calming phrase the horse recognized. The horse hesitated for a heartbeat, unsure of which direction to move. It took a slightly wider step to the left, which caused the carriage to tilt again, but not dangerously. Still, the moment required attention. The guard held the rein without pulling harshly. His touch was careful, guiding, reassuring. Kate felt the carriage shift and steadied herself with practiced grace. She did not panic. She simply observed, trusting the guard's presence. Years of public duties had shown her that small uncertainties were a natural part of events involving people, animals, and open spaces. The horse took another step, this time a bit faster, and the wheels of the carriage created a faint scraping sound on the path's edge. The guard immediately stepped inward, lowering his center of gravity to maintain control. His movements were quick but smooth, showing training, experience, and a deep understanding of how to prevent small issues from becoming larger ones. The crowd still did not realize what was happening. To them, the slight shifts looked like natural movements of the parade. People continued waving and snapping photos. Some children pointed at the horse excitedly, admiring its height and beauty. No one felt alarm, and that was exactly how the guard intended it to be. The horse, still feeling uncertain, leaned its body again, causing another slight tilt. Kate held the side rail once more, her expression steady. She understood that horses, like people, had moments where they needed reassurance. She trusted the guard to provide that support. The guard tightened the rein just a little, guiding the horse back into alignment with the second horse. His movements were thoughtful, making sure not to surprise the animal. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, a technique he learned long ago. Animals often responded to the calm breathing of people near them, and the horse did respond. It lowered its head slightly, its muscles relaxing by a small degree. But just as the guard felt it return to a more normal rhythm, a gentle gust of wind blew across the garden. The breeze carried light flower petals, loose papers, and tiny leaves. One particularly bright paper fluttered near the horse's face. Harmless but unexpected. The horse blinked rapidly and stepped sideways again, an instinctive reaction to something drifting near its eyes. Kate felt the carriage lean slightly and adjusted. The guard tightened his hold, guiding the horse back while keeping his voice soft and soothing. His words reminded the horse of the familiarity of the procession, the rhythm of its training, the steadiness of its handler. For a moment, the horse seemed torn between its natural alertness and the reassurance of the guard's presence. Its breathing was still elevated, but its movement slowed. The guard stayed close, his steps matching the horse's stride exactly. But the brief moment of instability had already started a series of tiny reactions. The carriage had shifted, Kate had steadied herself, and the guard had moved quickly to guide the horse. These small details combined to form what would soon become the pivotal moment of the day. Kate sat tall, composed, and quietly observant. She trusted the guard completely, and though the moment felt uncertain, she believed everything would be handled with care. The horse took another breath, deeper this time, and its body leaned again. Not dramatically, not dangerously, but enough to create a sensation that the carriage might tip if movement continued in the same direction. It was the kind of moment where everything slows down for those who understand it. The guard reacted at once. He stepped forward, placing himself in the perfect position to balance the horse's movement. His hands guided the reins softly but firmly. His voice remained calm, steady, grounding. And in that instant, quick, subtle, and almost invisible to anyone beyond a few feet, he prevented the situation from becoming something more serious. Princess Kate felt the carriage settle again, the slight tilt smoothing back into balance. She allowed herself a quiet breath, grateful for the guard's attentiveness. The near mishap had been brief, gentle, but meaningful. It was a moment that reminded everyone, especially the guard, how important calmness and quick thinking could be. And although the crowd never realized what had happened, Kate and the guard understood how close the moment had come to becoming something more complicated. The carriage continued forward, steady once more, guided by skilled hands and a calm heart. The moment after the guard steadied the lead horse felt like a long exhale across the entire garden path. The carriage settled again, and the horses resumed their gentle steps, though the earlier tension still lingered in the air like a faint whisper. Princess Kate looked around slowly, making sure everything appeared calm from her seat. Her smile for the crowd remained warm and steady, but she paid closer attention to the rhythm of the carriage now. She wanted to be aware of every small detail without giving away that anything unexpected had just happened. The guard continued walking beside the horse, maintaining a calm, reassuring presence. His movements stayed smooth and steady, as though guiding a delicate moment back toward normalcy. He had handled situations like this before, but each one carried its own unique weight because each involved people, animals, and the trust placed in him. He felt responsible for ensuring everything continued safely and gracefully. The horse's breathing eased little by little. Its steps, though still slightly cautious, had become more even. The guard noticed these signs and allowed himself a quiet breath of relief. The danger had been small, but moments could change quickly if not handled carefully. He remained close, walking at the same pace as the horse and watching for the smallest shift in its behavior. Princess Kate continued waving gently to the crowd, though her mind remained aware of the situation. Her experience at public events had taught her how to stay relaxed even when something uncertain happened. She also trusted the guard deeply. She had witnessed his steady presence many times before, and she knew he had acted quickly and calmly to prevent any mishap. She felt grateful for the professionalism of the team around her. The crowd remained cheerful and unaware of the quiet moment that had occurred. People continued taking photos and calling out warm greetings. A young boy wearing a blue jacket waved a handmade card that read, "Thank you, Princess Kate." She smiled brightly at him and placed her hand over her heart in a small gesture of appreciation. Moments like these helped her stay grounded and present, even when her thoughts were balancing between the public and private sides of an event. The horses continued forward, but the organizers decided it was wise to slow the pace slightly. A signal was given discreetly by a staff member walking near the middle of the path. The guard noticed the signal immediately and adjusted the rein in his hand with gentle pressure. The carriage slowed almost unnoticeably, enough to give the horses a moment to relax their rhythm. Kate sensed the change in speed and nodded quietly to herself. She appreciated how the team worked together without disrupting the atmosphere. The crowd likely assumed the slower pace was simply part of the plan, perhaps to give people more time to wave and take photos. The children along the path certainly enjoyed it, calling out happily as the carriage passed by at a friendlier, easier rhythm. The lead horse lowered its head slightly, which the guard took as a sign that it was beginning to settle. He kept speaking to it in a low, soothing voice. Animals responded to tone more than words, and his calmness seemed to help the horse regain its confidence. He knew that horses, like people, sometimes needed time to recover from small moments of uncertainty. Princess Kate observed the guard's gentle handling, feeling a sense of admiration. She always appreciated the dedication of those who worked to protect her and ensure the smoothness of each event. She made a mental note to thank him personally later, not just as a formality, but as a sincere expression of gratitude. As the procession approached a wider section of the garden, the organizers made another quiet decision. They would stop the carriage briefly to allow the horses a moment of rest and adjustment. It was not unusual for events like this to include brief pauses. Kate had experienced many processions before and understood the importance of giving animals breaks. She knew the crowd would not question the pause. Many would likely appreciate the chance to get a slightly longer look at the carriage. A staff member signaled the guard again with subtle gestures. He responded with a soft pull on the reins, guiding the horses to slow even further. The second horse, sensing the shift, followed the lead calmly, lowering its pace to match. The carriage rolled gently to a stop near a shaded section of the pathway, where the branches formed a soft canopy overhead. Princess Kate lowered her waving hand and folded her fingers neatly in her lap, maintaining her elegant posture. She looked toward the guard, who gave her a quiet, respectful nod. His expression remained professional, yet she could sense the relief shared between them. The moment the carriage paused, a wave of comfortable calm spread over the immediate area. The horses stood still, adjusting their weight and breathing more evenly. A soft breeze brushed through the trees, carrying with it the scent of flowers and freshly trimmed grass. The shade cooled the air around them, giving everyone a brief moment of rest. Kate enjoyed the small pause. It allowed her to observe the crowd more closely. She saw families chatting excitedly, children laughing, volunteers distributing water to staff, and the musicians taking a gentle breath between songs. It was a beautiful scene full of warmth and connection, reminding her again why she valued public service. The guard stepped closer to the lead horse and gently stroked its neck. The horse blinked slowly, its breathing now calm and steady. Its earlier alertness had softened into a relaxed, familiar posture. The guard whispered soothing words and checked the harness to ensure everything remained secure. A second guard approached quietly from behind the carriage. He had observed the situation from a distance and wanted to confirm that everything was under control. The two guards exchanged a brief conversation in soft voices. It was not a discussion of alarm, but one of coordination. They reviewed what had happened, how the horse had reacted, and how best to continue the procession without creating stress for the animals or drawing attention from the crowd. Princess Kate watched them from her seat, appreciating their professionalism and calmness. She knew how important teamwork was behind the scenes. Public events often appeared smooth and flawless, but that was only because of the countless small decisions made quietly by people who cared about their responsibilities. Another gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead, sending small patches of sunlight dancing across the horses' coats. The horses shifted slightly, their ears twitching in relaxed rhythm now rather than alertness. Kate felt the shift too, a feeling that the moment of uncertainty had passed, leaving behind a sense of renewed stability. The pause allowed the music to soften as musicians adjusted their instruments. The crowd continued chatting, unaware of anything unusual. Some young children tried to guess how tall the horses were. Others asked their parents how far the carriage would travel. Laughter filled the air, blending with the soft buzz of conversation. After a few minutes, the guard stepped back slightly and gave a small, respectful nod to signal that the horses were ready again. The second guard returned to his position. Another discreet signal passed between staff members, indicating that the procession could continue at a gentle pace. Kate returned her attention to the crowd, smiling again as the carriage began to move forward. The transition was smooth. almost unnoticeable to those watching. The horses stepped with renewed confidence, their rhythm even and comfortable now. The guard walked beside them with steady assurance, grateful that the moment of imbalance had been resolved peacefully. The path ahead curved slightly, leading toward a beautifully decorated archway filled with flowers. Ribbons in pastel pink, blue, and white hung gracefully, swaying gently in the breeze. It was one of the main visual highlights of the event, and volunteers had spent hours making it look perfect. As the procession approached the archway, the crowd grew thicker again. People leaned forward with excitement, raising cameras and phones to capture the moment. The wide smiles, joyful cheers, and colorful decorations created a picture of harmony. No one suspected that anything had almost gone wrong earlier, and that was exactly how Kate preferred it. She wanted the event to stay positive and uplifting for everyone attending. The horses moved smoothly under the archway, the guard maintaining a close but relaxed position beside them. He kept observing their steps, their ears, their breathing, ensuring that they remained comfortable as the scenery changed. The second horse followed the lead one faithfully, matching its pace and posture. Kate took a moment to admire the flowers framing the arch above her. They glowed in soft, gentle colors, creating a magical scene that felt almost like a dream. The audience applauded warmly as the carriage passed through the arch. Kate waved with grace, letting her smile radiate the sense of calm she had regained. The brief mishap earlier now felt like a distant memory. The guard's quick and gentle action had restored balance, and the event had returned to its smooth, celebratory rhythm. Kate felt grateful not only for his skill, but for the peaceful outcome that allowed the procession to continue without worry. As the carriage moved deeper into the garden, the guard glanced once at Princess Kate. She met his eyes briefly and gave him a small, respectful nod, a gesture of quiet thanks. He responded with a subtle bow of his head before returning his focus to the horses. The garden path opened into a wider clearing where a soft melody played from a group of harpists, stationed beneath a large white pavilion. Their music drifted like a warm blanket across the space, creating a soothing atmosphere that made the earlier tension fade entirely. The horses, now completely calm, walked with relaxed steps. The carriage moved with gentle ease. The crowd continued cheering, smiling, and taking photos, completely unaware of how close the day had come to a more complicated moment. The guard allowed himself a small, private breath of relief. His training had prepared him for many kinds of situations, and today he had acted exactly as he needed to, calmly, quickly, and gently. He knew it wasn't a dramatic moment, but it was meaningful. Tiny decisions often made the biggest difference. Princess Kate continued waving, her heart filled with gratitude for the people around her. Her team, the volunteers, the musicians, and the community gathered to support a cause she cared deeply about. The moment of uncertainty had passed, leaving behind only appreciation and a stronger sense of connection. And as the carriage rolled onward, steady and graceful once more, the event continued with renewed harmony, never revealing to the crowd the quiet moment where everything had nearly shifted, thanks only to the calm, instant reaction of the guard who stood just inches away. The procession continued with a smooth calmness that made the earlier moment feel almost unreal, as if it had happened in a different world. The gentle music from the harpists followed the carriage as it moved forward, blending with the soft breeze that rustled the flowers along the path. Princess Kate kept smiling warmly at the crowd, but inside her heart she carried a quiet appreciation for how gracefully the day had returned to peace. She felt a renewed sense of gratitude for everyone working behind the scenes, especially the guard who had reacted so quickly and respectfully. As the carriage approached the final part of the route, the garden opened into a wide clearing filled with soft decorations, small tents, and tables offering refreshments for visitors. Families gathered there, waiting to wave at Princess Kate one last time before the procession reached its end point. The children were the most excited, holding up colorful drawings and handmade cards. Their innocent joy made Kate's smile grow even warmer. The horses walked with a natural, steady rhythm now. Their steps were relaxed, their ears pointed forward comfortably, and their breathing soft and even. The guard walked beside them with a renewed sense of calm. He had stayed alert for the entire time since the near mishap, but he could feel now that the horses had recovered completely. Even so, he maintained a careful watch, not out of worry, but out of responsibility. His job was to ensure that every moment remained safe and smooth, whether anything unusual happened or not. Princess Kate observed the people in the clearing as the carriage approached. She could see a mixture of ages and backgrounds, families, students, elderly supporters, volunteers, and people who had come simply to enjoy the beautiful day. Some individuals held bouquets, and others waved softly embroidered handkerchiefs. Kate always felt touched by the kindness of people who came to show their support. It made her public duties feel meaningful and connected. When the carriage rolled into the clearing, the crowd clapped gently as a sign of welcome. Kate acknowledged them with a graceful wave, letting her smile radiate through the entire space. She maintained perfect poise, but inside she felt a quiet sense of relief that everything had ended safely. The earlier moment had reminded her how unpredictable even simple things could be, yet it had also reminded her how important it was to remain calm. The guard guided the horses toward a shaded area where the carriage would stop. His steps were measured, smooth, and confident. He gently stroked the closest horse's neck as they neared the stopping point, his touch communicating reassurance even though the horse was now calm. He felt a deep respect for the animals. He understood they never intended harm, they simply reacted to the world around them. The carriage rolled to a gentle stop near a tall arrangement of white roses and pastel-colored ribbons. Princess Kate adjusted herself slightly, preparing to step out with her usual grace. Two footmen approached and positioned themselves near the carriage steps. The guard took a half step back, ready to assist if needed, but allowing the formal attendants to perform their roles. Kate placed her hand lightly on the offered arm of one footman and descended from the carriage with controlled ease. Her dress settled around her as she reached the ground, and she took a small breath of relief, not because she felt afraid, but because stepping onto solid ground after a long carriage ride always provided a sense of balance. The crowd applauded once more as she stood in the open space. Kate lifted her head, smiling warmly at everyone, letting her presence bring comfort and appreciation. She didn't want anyone to feel concerned about anything that had happened. Today was a day meant for inspiration, kindness, and connection. Several organizers stepped forward to greet her. They thanked her for attending and supporting the charity. Kate listened kindly to each person, nodding thoughtfully and offering warm compliments about the event's decorations and arrangements. Her voice carried sincerity in every word. She had a special way of making each person feel valued and respected. But even as she spoke to them, her mind kept returning briefly to the guard, who had handled the earlier moment with such quiet courage. She wanted to make sure he knew how much she appreciated what he had done, not because it was dramatic, but because it showed dedication and care. After greeting the organizers, Kate turned gently and gestured for the guard to approach. He stepped forward respectfully, maintaining the professional posture he had upheld throughout the event. He didn't expect her to say anything special publicly, but he understood that she wanted to acknowledge him privately. When he reached her, Kate offered a warm, sincere smile, the kind that came from the heart, not from ceremony. "Thank you," she said softly so that only he could hear. "You handled everything with such calmness. I'm grateful." The guard bowed his head politely. "It is my duty, Your Highness," he replied in a steady, respectful voice. "I'm glad the horses settled quickly." Kate appreciated his humility. She knew he wasn't the type to seek praise, but she still wanted him to understand that his professionalism mattered. Quiet acts of care were often the most important, even when no one else noticed. After speaking with him, Kate walked toward the families gathered in the clearing. She spent time talking to children, admiring their drawings, and listening to their small stories about school or hobbies. She kneeled slightly to be on their level, making them feel comfortable and valued. Their innocence filled the space with a kind of lightness that softened the memory of the earlier tension. One little girl handed Kate a flower crown she had made using daisies and lavender. Kate accepted it with a smile full of surprise and tenderness. She placed the crown gently on her head, causing the children around her to giggle with joy. The moment was simple but deeply charming. Meanwhile, staff members guided the horses to a rest area behind a fence where caretakers waited. The guard accompanied them until he was sure everything was stable. The caretakers patted the horses gently, offering water and speaking in quiet, familiar tones. The lead horse, the one that had reacted earlier, leaned close to one caretaker's shoulder as if seeking comfort. The man rubbed the horse's neck affectionately, understanding the animal's nature without judgment. The guard observed for a moment longer before stepping away. He gave a final nod to the caretakers, silently trusting them to handle the horses now. His shoulders relaxed slightly, a small release of tension after hours of attentiveness. Later, Princess Kate moved to a beautifully arranged tent where a brief closing ceremony would take place. She stood on a small platform decorated with greenery and soft pink flowers. The audience gathered around, creating a half-circle of smiling faces. Kate delivered a short speech in her warm, familiar voice. She spoke about the importance of kindness, community, and supporting one another. She thanked the volunteers for their efforts and praised the families for attending. She expressed her love for events that brought people together in gentle, uplifting ways. And although she didn't mention the mishap, she carried the wisdom of the moment within her words, reminding people to appreciate the quiet strength behind every successful gathering. As she finished speaking, the crowd applauded warmly. Kate bowed her head slightly and smiled. The air around her felt filled with gratitude, peace, and unity. It was a moment that represented not just an event, but a shared experience of positivity. After the ceremony, she walked toward the exit path with her staff. The guard returned to her side, maintaining a respectful yet comfortable distance. Kate walked slowly, taking time to wave goodbye to the remaining families. Everyone looked satisfied and joyful, unaware of anything unusual that had happened earlier. Kate appreciated that. She wanted their memories of the day to be filled with happiness, not worry. Once she reached the area near the palace entrance, she paused for a moment, taking in the view of the garden from which she had just returned. The sun was lower in the sky now, casting a warm orange glow across the flowers. The entire space looked peaceful and welcoming. Kate turned to the guard again. Her expression was soft, thoughtful, and grateful. "You did well today," she said kindly. The guard bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness." She smiled one last time before stepping through the palace doors, leaving the garden behind. Inside, the cool air greeted her, and she allowed herself a quiet moment to breathe. The day had been beautiful, meaningful, and slightly challenging, but it had ended with harmony, and that was what mattered most. The guard watched her enter the palace before turning back toward the garden, ensuring everything was settling down properly. The horses were resting, the crowd was dispersing, and the staff was closing the final sections of the event area. Everything looked peaceful. He allowed himself a small, inward smile, not one of pride, but one of fulfillment. He had done his job well, and he had helped maintain the calmness of a day that meant so much to many people. Princess Kate, meanwhile, walked down the quiet hallway with a soft sense of peace. She thought about the families she had met, the children's laughter, the volunteers' dedication, and the guards' quick, gentle action that had kept the day steady. She carried each memory like a warm spark in her heart. And although the world outside would never know about the moment where everything almost tilted, she would remember it, not as something frightening, but as a reminder of how small acts of awareness and kindness could shape the outcome of a whole day. The event had ended with harmony, connection, and grace, and that, she felt, was the most beautiful part of all.